Chinese is a very important language. Today is a global language. Everybody should learn it. And when I say everybody, I'm not talking about just the Chinese people, whether they are in Malaysia or Singapore. I'm talking about everybody. And today, more and more everybody are waking up to the importance of Mandarin. We have Malays, Indians sending their children to Chinese schools in Malaysia because they want to give their children a competitive edge over their peers. And they are doing the right thing because they don't regard Mandarin as the language of the Chinese people. They regard Mandarin as an important language that has to be learned. And even today, you will find countries in Africa where Mandarin is being taught. So yes, Mandarin has become a very important global language. However, in Malaysia and in Singapore, something is happening which, although Mandarin is an important language, it is doing something to all the other Chinese languages, which is it's replacing the other Chinese languages. And that should be something of concern for yourself if you are a person, a Chinese person in Malaysia and Singapore. Myself, I go to an English school. Well, the medium of instruction from my school was Malay. And then I transitioned to secondary school at Penang Free School, where English is used quite a lot. However, we also are allowed to use our mother tongue languages. So some of my friends will speak to me in Penang Hokkien, and some of my friends will speak among themselves in Cantonese. What I find very strange is that in many Chinese schools, mother tongue Chinese languages are not allowed. And here I'm using the word languages because Hokkien, Cantonese, Teochew, and so on, they really are different languages. They are as different as English is to French and French is to German. If you speak one, you are not automatically able to understand the other. They are so diverse one from the other. However, as I've explained in the video which I'm going to put here on, are they languages or dialect? For the sake of social politics, they are often considered as dialects because they are artificially suppressed to uphold the position of a Chinese language. That Chinese language in the past was literary Chinese, and in the beginning part of the 20th century, that was largely replaced by Mandarin. So right now, nowadays, modern standard Mandarin is now the Chinese language, the official Chinese languages, and all the other Chinese languages. And these Chinese languages, linguists have categorized them and grouped them as Sinitic or Sinitic languages into different dialect groups or language groups. So these are actually diverse and separate languages. So Hokkien would be a language, Cantonese would be a language, so is Hakka, Teochew, Taishanese, Hainanese, and so on. And all these languages are the languages of the people in Malaysia and Singapore, because almost all the Chinese in Malaysia and Singapore hail from just 3 provinces. In China, there are many provinces and autonomous regions. However, the Chinese in Malaysia and Singapore come from just 3 places, which are Fujian province, Guangdong province, and Hainan province. And so we came and we brought with us our identity. In Penang, we have been using Hokkien, or rather Penang Hokkien. And when I say Penang Hokkien, then I will acknowledge that Penang Hokkien is a dialect of Hokkien language. Not of Chinese as a whole, but of Hokkien language. Because Penang Hokkien is a variant of the Hokkien language, whereas Hokkien is by itself a Chinese language, as is Cantonese and so on. When Hokkien arrived in this region in Kedah, in southern Siam, in the northern part of the Malay Peninsula, and eventually it moved across to Penang Island when Penang Island was established. There is no knowledge of Mandarin. The only time people would hear Mandarin is if they get into contact with a Beijing bureaucrat. So in 1786, you would not hear Mandarin. You would hear Hokkien, and eventually you would also hear Cantonese, and then Teochew, and all the other Chinese languages of southern China. So we, the Chinese people in Malaysia and Singapore, are technically southern Chinese, and we speak our southern Chinese languages all the way throughout the 19th century right into the 20th century. And throughout this blissful period, there is no intrusion of Mandarin, and there isn't even a Mandarin school. For in the past, if a person wants to learn to read and write, and reading and writing in the 19th century, if you are a Chinese, is an absolute privilege. If your parents are not well-to-do, if your parents are not merchants, for example, or a leading leader of the clan association, you will have no chance to learn to read or write. You will be one of many people. You are the commoners. So if you're a commoner who is a Chinese in Malaysia and Singapore, and well, back then there's no Malaysia and Singapore, there's the whole Malay Peninsula. You have no chance to learn to read and write. The only people who have the chance to learn to read and write is A, you are born a male, and then your family is well-to-do, and being these two, and if you are part of the leadership of a clan, then your parents will hire tutors to teach you to read and write. And when you learn to read and write, you will be surprised that you are learning to read and write something that sounds a bit like your mother tongue, but it's not your mother tongue. That is to say, you would be speaking with your parents, with your friends in spoken mother tongue. For example, if you are Hokkien, then you'll be speaking in the vernacular of spoken Hokkien. If you are Cantonese, you'll be speaking in the vernacular Cantonese. But the written language is not Mandarin. It is something that sounds like your Hokkien language, but some of the words sound different. Let's say, for example, you're accustomed to saying Ling to mean dragon. Now you're learning to say Leong to mean dragon. And eventually, the word Leong to mean dragon also seep out from this written form into the spoken form. And in the spoken form, nowadays, people know the word for dragon as both Ling and Leong, but because they were never taught, brought into school and educated, they cannot explain to you why are there two different pronunciations for the word dragon. Why is there Ling and Leong? And there's many words like Qiu Gua and Qiang Gua, or Hing and Huan, Hing Lui or Huan Lui. So why is there always a two set of words to pronounce the same word in Hokkien? Well, the reason is that one is the original spoken language, and the other is the written language. So when if you were a privileged person, the son of a wealthy merchant, and your tutor come and teach you, you would learn the written form. And this written form is literary Chinese. And so it exists that throughout the 19th century and into the 20th century, people learn to read and write literary Chinese, which enabled them to communicate with all the other people throughout China, not only among themselves who are Hokkien, but the Hokkien can communicate with the Cantonese, with the Teochew, with the Hakka, and cross-border. Out of their province, they can communicate with the Shanghainese. They can communicate with the people in Shandong. They can communicate with the people in Beijing. With this same written form, even though they do not speak the language of the people of Beijing. The people in Beijing will be speaking Mandarin, which is a language which is totally foreign to the Southern Chinese. Yet with this written form, they were able to communicate. However, things changed in the 20th century. It began with the new cultural movement, and I explained the new cultural movement with this video. So you can go to this video and learn about the new cultural movement. But the byproduct of the new cultural movement is that China realized that it has to overhaul the entire system. It cannot continue to use literary Chinese because this literary Chinese is keeping the Chinese people handicapped. Imagine this Tower of Babel where every province speaks its own language. In Fujian province itself, there's multiple languages. You can be living in Zhangzhou. The moment you move to Quanzhou, you still hear Hokkien, but Hokkien has changed from Zhangzhou Hokkien to Quanzhou Hokkien. And then if you move inland, you will be meeting with Hakka people, and the Hakka people will be speaking a language that is totally foreign for you, even though they are also living in Fujian province. And then moving northeast, you will arrive in the capital of Fujian province, which is Fuzhou. And in Fuzhou, again, they will be speaking a language which is totally foreign to you, and again, you can't understand. So isn't it marvelous if there is one single language that all of us can speak and understand one another? And so that is why Mandarin was introduced across China. And in the Malay Peninsula, we completely toe the line as far as the introduction of Mandarin is concerned. So we accepted Mandarin here, and even as though the Malay Peninsula is like an extension of China or a lost province of China, because the Chinese people in Malaysia completely discarded their southern Chinese languages and take on the language which is Mandarin. In a way, it is good. Now, I don't have to worry. A Chinese person, do not have to worry that this person speaks Cantonese, that person speaks Hakka, that person speaks Teochew, and myself, I'm Taishanese. All of us can use one single language to speak, and we can travel across China using just one language, which is Mandarin. In the past, we use one single writing system, which is literary Chinese, but the spoken language is still diverse, province by province. That has been eliminated by the introduction of modern standard Mandarin. And with the introduction of modern standard Mandarin also come a sudden zest to build Chinese schools. So if you trace the history of the Chinese schools in Malaysia and Singapore, you will realize that all these Chinese schools were established in the 20th century. Why? Because suddenly the Chinese people realized that yes, literacy is important for all of us, and we must teach our children, get them educated, and give them the ability to read and write. But read and write not in literary Chinese as was in the past, but read and write in this new modern system which is called modern standard Mandarin. So they were all in. The Chinese people in Malaysia and Singapore were all in to learn Mandarin, and they take it as far a step as China. So when China implemented simplified Chinese characters, Malaysia and Singapore likewise followed suit and implemented simplified Chinese characters, while other places like Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, they continue on with traditional Chinese characters. So as I said, Malaysia and Singapore, this Malay Peninsula is almost like a lost province of China, because everything that is done in China is being done here in Malaysia and Singapore. But to a degree that nowadays we look around, our own southern Chinese languages are being replaced by Mandarin. I'm not saying that Mandarin is not important. I'm saying that Mandarin is very, very important. But we should not replace our identity with an identity that was introduced to us from Beijing. Because we, the southern Chinese people, have our own identity, and we should celebrate our own identity without ever replacing Mandarin. The position of Mandarin is secure. We don't have to worry about Mandarin. And yet, many Chinese schools in Malaysia and Singapore suppress the role of the mother tongue languages. I am surprised to learn that if you were to go to a Chinese school, even today in 2024, children going to those schools will be punished if they were caught speaking in their mother tongue, be it Hokkien or Cantonese or Teochew. How could this be? Why are you suppressing your own heritage? This is very important. I'm not saying that those children should not speak Mandarin. Those children should and must learn Mandarin, but not at the expense of their mother tongue. And not only that, instead of suppressing those mother tongue languages, the Chinese schools should put in an effort to teach the children about their own heritage. Who are the Hokkien people, for example? Where do they come from? What is Zhangzhou? Where is Zhangzhou? Where is Quanzhou? Where is Xiamen? Why are these cities important to the Hokkien in Malaysia and Singapore? And where do the Hakkas come from? Where are the Cantonese from? Where are the Teochews from? Where are the Taishanese and the Hokkien people from? So these are all important information that I find that Chinese schools are not doing the job to explain to the Chinese people, the Chinese students and children in Malaysia and Singapore. And so as a result, the Chinese students in Chinese schools in Malaysia and Singapore grew up with a very uniform identity that they are Chinese and therefore they speak Mandarin. So speaking Mandarin become what it is to be Chinese. And this actually is an identity that is put to them almost like a propaganda since the 20th century. But before the 20th century, it was not so. We could celebrate being Hokkien, Cantonese, Teochew, and so on. But this identity is now being erased, whitewashed, and in its place, it is being replaced by Mandarin. To me, if you put something away and you deliberately, purposely erase it, it will be gone, and one day you will realize what we have lost. So, my urge to Chinese schools in Malaysia and Singapore is, yes, uphold the learning of Mandarin. By all means, do that. But at the same time, invest an effort to teach the children in Malaysia and Singapore their mother tongue languages. And I'm using the word languages instead of dialect because from a linguistic perspective, these are all languages. Teach them those languages. Let them hear how does a Hakka sound like. How does Teochew sound like. Let them compare all the different Southern Chinese languages. This is not done. I wish I can do it, but I only speak Penang Hokkien, and so all my effort is invested into preserving, developing, and modernizing Penang Hokkien so that it continues to stay relevant into this 21st century. If I could do it, I would do the same for Teochew, Cantonese, Hakka, and so on, and so on, and so on. Right now, the Cantonese possibly feel that their position is still secure. But I'm telling you, your position is like you are the frog in a slow boiling pot. That means you are being boiled in such a slow way at a glacier pace that you don't even realize that the pot is boiling, but it is slowly cooking you. So this is the position of Cantonese. In other words, Cantonese also need to be preserved and saved. Right now, you might not feel it because if you go to places like Ipoh and Kuala Lumpur, you will see that Cantonese is being spoken extensively. But in places like Hong Kong, they are already feeling the pressure of learning Mandarin. They are not accustomed to learning Mandarin in place of their own Cantonese language. Whereas in Malaysia, we are in a way ahead of them in that we have exposure to Mandarin much longer than the people of Hong Kong. And so the people of Hong Kong is giving a greater pushback with Mandarin, but it is, I tell you, something that they cannot win. Mandarin is going to come as ready as morning is going to come every day. So we cannot push away Mandarin. Mandarin is an important language. Everybody must learn it. I don't have a chance to learn it properly, but now as an adult, almost 60 years old, I am still learning Mandarin as much as I can as part of my effort to preserve Penang Hokkien. So yes, I may not have a chance to learn Mandarin properly when I was growing up, when I was going to school. As I said, I went to Penang Free School where we don't use Mandarin. But right now, as an adult, as far as I can, I will want to learn Mandarin as I want to know more about all the other Chinese languages such as Teochew, Cantonese, Hakka, Hainanese. I don't have a chance because nobody is teaching me that, and all these languages, many of them are endangered and is going to die. And I just wish if you speak all these languages and you have the passion to preserve it, perhaps we can work together, get in touch with me. You have my number right here. WhatsApp me and we can talk. Perhaps we can create a writing system for your language, be it Hokkien or Taishanese or Hakka, whatever, and then I can add your language into my dictionary, which I will share to everybody free of charge, so that we have whatever it is to preserve our language. But for the Chinese schools in Malaysia and Singapore, once again, I urge you to do something to save our Chinese languages. Yes, Mandarin is important. We know. Everybody knows. Even a lot of Malays, a lot of Indians, they know. Eurasians, Westerners, all you go to America, they are learning Mandarin. The role, the position of Mandarin is secure. But now it's time to preserve our identity, and let's do it together. And so, my friends, that's my video for today. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope this message reached the right person. And if you can, share this with the person who can do a difference and make a difference. With perhaps is a school leader who also understand this importance that we have to preserve our identity. Maybe if this message reached him or her, maybe he could do something to start something that will help the students in Chinese schools learn more about their own heritage, about the different languages that they spoke. Whatever I can do to help, feel free to get in touch with me, and I will be most delighted to assist. And so this is my video for today. If you enjoy videos like this, subscribe to the Learn Penang Hokkien YouTube channel, and so I can bring you some more videos. Until then, Kam Sia Lu Che Che.